Hi, thank you for joining us on the Odgers Berndtson One Question vidcast. My name is Jules McKean. I run the global media practice for Odgers Berndtson out of London, and I'm delighted for our Autumn Winter 2022 series to be joined by Dan Fahy. Hi, Dan.
Hi, Julie.
Thanks for coming, Dan. So Dan is SVP for Streaming and Head of Emerging Business for Paramount in the UK, and he has P&L and growth accountability for the SVOD service Paramount Plus, the fast AVOD service Pluto TV, and the BVOD service My5, sorry. Dan also leads business development and distribution for Paramount in the UK, covering partnerships with Sky and Virgin Media across all Paramount brands and services. And he was also part of the team that formulated the Sky Showtime European streaming joint venture between Paramount and Comcast, NBCU, and Sky. So, Dan, you feel extremely well placed, in my view, to answer our question for this season, which is how is our industry preparing for the upcoming, slightly unpredictable as of today, market conditions that we might face?
Yeah, well, and the conditions that we sort of are in already, as well as, upcoming. So it's an interesting question, Julie, because as you sit down and look at what's happening in the market, you sort of wonder, well, you can identify things that were probably already in train that are becoming critical versus things that are direct responses to the market conditions we find ourselves in. So from our perch here, we sort of, when I consider this question, you can think of perhaps four categories of activity that you can see different plays being made. So one of them is diversification. Businesses are needing to be diversified in these conditions. The second one is a focus on value, creating value or looking for value, particularly for consumers. And the third one is around what people are doing for pricing. And there's some very interesting pricing moves going on. And then the fourth one is costs. There is rising costs in the market, and businesses are facing costs of their own. So I think if you look at those four categories, you can sort of place activity within those. So if I start with the diversification one, and if we start with Paramount, we would regard our business in the UK as being very well diversified today. If you look at just broadcast, we've got a big footprint in free-to-air TV with Channel 5. We've got a big footprint in pay with our basic pay contracts with Sky and Virgin just been renewed for the long term.
Right.
But in streaming, we've got a very diverse footprint as well. We've got Paramount Plus in the SVOD category. We've got Pluto in the AVOD and fast category. And as you mentioned, we've got My5 in the BVOD category. And then looking beyond that, the rest of our business, we're giving a full run to on the theatrical releases, on licensing, transaction. Take Top Gun Maverick. We gave that a very big and full theatrical window, justifiably so, hugely popular. It's been a full throttle transactional window with our big partners like Sky and Amazon and Apple, and then it will come into pay one with Sky and Paramount Plus later as well. So that's an example where we're giving full range to the windowing, which is slightly different to some players. Now, if you look in the market at what other players are doing as well, you see ITV with ITVX. That is a deliberate move to diversify them from BVOD into fast and AVOD. If you look at Netflix and Disney Plus with their ad tiers, that's moving them from a pure subscription model into an ad, streaming ad model as well. Amazon with Freevee just getting more fully into, the ad-funded business model for streaming. Even things like Sky with Sky Stream is taking them into the IP delivery business, so away from satellite. So there's quite a bit of diversification going on, which is, as I said at the start, I think many of these plans, I know many of these plans were laid before the current climate, but these directions become more urgent and more important in the current climate.
Yeah. God, it's interesting, isn't it? Because actually being, as you say, being as diversified as you are means that you just have got that agility. The value question, how, we're going into an environment where unless the predictions are scientifically wrong, people just aren't going to have the same amount of disposable income. But there are some dynamics. I've been talking to other individuals about this, where the unpredictable part of it, I suppose, is actually, conversely, maybe like in the pandemic where people couldn't go out, now they may not be able to afford to go out as much. Are we going to have a kickback where people are entertaining at home more, spending more time watching top quality content? that might be able to therefore kind of offset some of the kind of headwinds in the advertising value. How do you think that might play out for you guys? I mean, it's very, I know, appreciate that's a massive question.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. There is this, as we've seen, being in the industry for a while, when economic times hit hard, pay TV tends to do okay with it, as you say, because spend comes from outside the home into the home. But perhaps spend has already contracted through the pandemic anyway. But so I think from our point of view, one of the things that when we launched Paramount Plus, we've hard bundled that with Sky, and it's included for no extra cost in the price of Sky Cinema for Sky Cinema subscribers. Now that has turned into a very, very important and effective value message for Sky at the moment, where you can go and say, hey, you've got your Sky subscription, your Sky Cinema for £11 a month. You also get this service retailing at £7 a month for no extra charge. So that sort of value exchange works really well for us and Sky. It's a good partnership, but it's working very well for their customers. So we're looking to do more of those sorts of value partnerships in the market. And then to your question around, or to your observation around, well, does this climate sort of play into the bundle? You know, does it sort of play to the favor? And I think what's interesting is, if we talk about the pricing point, is if you have a look at what's happened pricing wise this year, it's sort of counterintuitive, because Amazon at the start of the year announced their prices were going up quite a bit, from about £80 a year to 95. Monthly is £7 to £8 roughly. Netflix has put its prices up. Sky, Virgin putting their prices up. Disney in the US put its prices up quite significantly too. I think going from something like $7 to $11 per month. Now, that's a bit counterintuitive, right? Why, as we head into these difficult times, are these companies putting through pricing? And I think it's back to your point, Julie. It's like, if you feel that you're quite safe in the keep category, as people tighten their belts, you're in the keep category, you can afford to put through some price rises here and not necessarily lose customers. So it talks to a bit of confidence there. But I think also what you're seeing around some of those companies is they're creating a bit of room for their ad tier. So
yes,
Netflix,
I was going to ask about that. Yeah.
So Netflix just, I think in the UK today, announced the pricing for their ad tier. Conveniently, it's the same price as their basic tier was before the price increase. Disney in the US, when they launched their ad tier, they've priced it at the same price as their basic tier was before it lifted. So I think the pricing piece also plays into creating a bit of room. But I think it also like I said, it talks to a bit of confidence in the market around some of these players, that particularly the bundle, you know, Sky has moved into much more of an aggregation play. I think the bundle becomes relevant again when for households, when pricing, you know, when belts get tightened. Yeah,
no, that's really, really interesting. And how is your industry, or you know, whether it's the company or whether it's the broader industry that you observe, managing to kind of accommodate the rising costs? Because talent costs were already, from our perspective, very inflated and in quite a worrying bubble. Some kind of, you know, kind of scrap for talent, and war for talent, as people were calling it over the summer. And some of those people have done quite well out of that, but actually the cost of living has just meant that everybody else who hasn't done that, I mean, there is an argument, I think, from our side to say some of those people may be slightly exposed, who've gone for very, very high multiples of where they might have been previously, you know, and taking advantage of it. But let's imagine that most people are not that, and actually there is a sort of, you know, real crunch on cost of living and inflation. How can the TV industry and the broadcast industry accommodate that going forward?
Yeah, no, it's very real. You know, we talk to our drama producers, for example, and they're seeing their costs go up by about 30%, you know, which is significant.
Wow.
So we're having to work with them on. They're really valuable partners and contributors for us. So at the point of commission, we sit down now and we just make sure that, you know, the relationship we're going to set up is going to be sufficient for them to manage through this at the moment, because it's, you know, it's significant. And we see it in our own business as well. You know, our own costs of doing business are going up, and justifiably so in some cases, because we've been able to, you know, our staff, for example, all have their own cost pressures to manage as well in their everyday life. So we've been able to push through a boost on our sort of annual pay increase for certain bands to give more money back to staff. So look, across the board, our business is sort of seeing costs going up as well, either through partner costs or our own costs of business. Like everybody, we just have to be a bit more deliberate with our spend. We're taking care to make sure our hiring is at a pace that is keeping in check with the market. So all the things that you'd expect businesses to be doing, we're doing as well, and trying to help our partners out at the same time.
So it's very interesting, and I'm very keen to. I know it looks quite. There's an element of doom and gloom coming up potentially in the next couple of years, but people do say in times of challenge is when great creativity thrives. So I just thought it might be quite interesting to kind of end on a lighter note of something that you're excited about, whether it's a region, whether it's a genre, whether it's an innovation or a product, either from you guys or from the wider industry, anything that you kind of go, oh, it's going to be very interesting for the next year.
Well, I mean, one of the great things about our business and Paramount Plus is we're not reliant on the US to produce all of the shows for us, and we're doing some great shows here in the UK. Now, you've seen other peer companies like Discovery, Warner's, etc., sort of rolling back from their commitments to make programs in Europe, but we're pushing ahead. We've got a gentleman in Moscow. We've recently, I don't know if you know that book, a terrific book that's been produced in the UK for Paramount Plus next year. We've got Fletcher. We've got all these great titles coming through that we remain committed to, because we've got a diverse business and because we're leveraging all these windows in our business. We're more certain in our financing of these things. So we're very excited about that. It's going to be good to see next year some well-known IP land on Paramount Plus that we can sort of badge as UK produced, and so that's very exciting for us.
Yeah, and just a question really: do you think that coming through 2 years of the pandemic has made the sort of attitude towards windowing and technology and how to reach audiences a little bit more agile, because people are sort of forced to relook at kind of quite traditional windowing processes and strategic, operation plans? Do you think that will help the industry be in slightly better shape going into whatever is to come, that it has had to work on the basis of we are in a different world today than we were yesterday, just in such recent history? Yeah,
look, I think there's definitely been a reappraisal of there was like a philosophy or a dogma that you had to be a pure play focus on streaming in the sector, and it's sort of at the expense of all the other business lines. Now, I think there's now an appreciation that many of these business lines are in fact complementary and can coexist. They're not cannibalistic. So I think it's a bit of that, Julie, that realization that these segments are sort of separate and can coexist. And that just plays nicely into the environment we find ourselves in, where you can't really be turning away big lanes of revenue at the moment because of the cost pressures and the need to sort of fund your innovation. So I think it is definitely a bit of necessity, but also I think thinking has come along a little bit in the last 18 months or 2 years around this. Brilliant. Dan Fahy, I'm very conscious of your time. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Lots to think about, lots of innovations coming up. Look forward to seeing something from you across all the many, many different windows and opportunities and platforms and apps, in the months to come. So thanks very much for joining us, Dan. Thanks, Julie.